Welcome to the Christian Party for America. We're going to be talking about some policy items today on this program, which is syndicated on Order Militaris Radio TV. We here are lifelong Catholics, and what we do here is all for free in love with Jesus Christ, in the most holy Trinity, and His holy Church. It will defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Our work is the true sense of apostolate. Any funds raised goes back into this work for equipment. The self is to give you an unbiased, hard-hitting truth that is not controlled by political correctness or interest groups. And as I said, today is on educational reform of the Christian Party for America. And we welcome our member from Massachusetts who lives in Rome, Italy, Brother Alexis Brunello.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on this weekly program, talking about something that is really hopeful for America, and something all Catholics should have been doing and thinking about, but for some reason, some kind of control system got in, and Catholics figured, no, they have to not express their faith in politics.
Mm-hmm.
And so since Christian, the name Christian, the name Catholic were first used of Catholics, these are our birthright, and we need to represent Christ in the public forum. So I'm delighted to do this weekly program with you. And yeah, in the United States, I reside in Massachusetts. I'm currently in Rome. We're with a bunch of Catholics. We also founded a Catholic party. And just last week, we did the act at the Notary Public. And in the next few what was the last thing you heard, AJ?
Notary Public, and then a huge beep went into your microphone.
Yeah, I don't see how that would happen. I didn't touch anything. You heard me say Massachusetts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, in the United States, I reside in Massachusetts, but I currently reside in Italy, where with a bunch of Catholics, we founded a Catholic party also. And it was last week, and the next few weeks, we're getting all our bank accounts up and going, and we printed 10,000 leaflets. We handed them out about a week ago. So this is something that Catholics is energizing Catholics around the world. The Americans have to, these Catholics in the United States need to realize that they should be Catholic first and American second.
Mm-hmm.
And that America's named after a Roman Catholic martyr, Saint Americus. So if the country is named after a Catholic saint and martyr, Catholic politics is the destiny of America, and we need to be bold in talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've done a whole bunch of programs, and today we're going to talk about education, because public education in the United States is just so messed up. It wasn't really worth much even when I went to school. And well, what did you think of your public school education, AJ?
Well, being in special ed, it was like a nightmare. Like, oh, this is what you gotta do. They dumbed it down to they treat you like a little baby. Like, this is what you gotta do. You just teach me properly. So I was like, so whenever I had to go into the math class with all the classmates, the math teacher did not teach us how to do math. She just expected us to be able to do it. I was like, so.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, what do I do here? It wasn't until finally I was in the Colby Community College when they noticed that I wasn't taught properly in high school. And he's like, okay, come see my friend down in the basement where they help these kids get on the track on learning stuff. So I did, and down there learned the math I should have learned in high school properly. And that lady was so nice, so awesome. She broke down the math where you could just understand it like you were just reading. And it was like, I had straight A's all through college in math.
Okay. See, it's one thing. My parents are both educators, and my mother taught elementary school her whole life, and she always said that if a child doesn't learn something, don't scratch him off as being unable to learn it. Try again a year later, and he'll pick it up, because the mind is always able to learn, and it's its natural ability. But somehow, I think in publication, all they want to do just regurgitate, give you information, and want you to give it back. It's almost like they're expecting the classroom to be the television. The television just gives you information, and then you just give it back. And that never teaches you to think or to be an individual, or even to be an informed voter, which is perhaps why it's done. But this is not what Christian education is about or was about, and this is not what education even in the United States and England in the colonial period was about. And you've done some research on this, AJ. What have you discovered?
Have actually located the actual textbooks online, free to read, free to use, thanks to the Pittsburgh University out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania's website. And these titles are shocking because these are for grade schoolers to middle schoolers. If they had high school education, it would be for high school education too. So
what are some of these titles?
The first one is Speaker or Miscellaneous Pieces, selected from the best English writers, disposed under the proper heads with the views and improvement of the youth in reading and speaking. And classical.
So it's a book.
Yeah.
It's a book. Oh wait. So the first book is on like rhetoric. It's
yeah.
A reader.
And the next one is Classical English Letter Writer, to improve the young people in letter writing and the principles of virtue and piety.
That's a really needed one. They can't even write a statement on a WhatsApp, let alone write a letter anymore.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and to show that piety should, and to show that piety should be included.
Yeah. And next one is just for girls. The girls' reading book in prose and poetry used for school. Now we're getting into the, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's amazing. All this talk about women's right today, and girls don't have their own textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Christian civilization is way ahead of the progressive movement.
Mm-hmm. Now, this one is like a giant textbook. Old textbooks used for spelling, grammar, arithmetic, geography, American history, civil government, physiology, penmanship, art, music, as taught in the common schools from the colonial days to 1900.
It's like a one schoolhouse textbook, has a little of everything in it.
Mm-hmm. The last one is Lessons in Geography for Little Learners.
And have you taken a look inside these textbooks to see what's in them?
Yeah, I've looked at them all, and the very first one on improvement of the youth in reading and speaking got my eye because I still struggle on it today. It's the first book or essay is on elocutions, and it has rules on speaking, on how to learn how to speak. And the first rule is, let your articulation be distinct and deliberate. A good articulation consists in giving a clear and full utterance to the several simple and complex sounds. The nature of these sounds therefore ought to be well understood, and much pains should be taken to discover and correct those faults in articulation which though often ascribed to some defect in the organs of speech, are generally the consequence of inattention or a bad example. Many of these respects of the sounding of the consonants. Some cannot pronounce the letter L, and others the simple sound of R, S, TH, SH. Others generally omit the aspirate H. These faults may be corrected by reading sentences so contrived as often to repeat the faulty sounds, and by guarding against them in familiar conversation. Other defects in articulation regard the complex sounds and consist in a confused and cluttering pronunciation of words. The most effectual methods of conquering this habit are to read aloud passages chosen for that purpose, such for instance as if bound with long and unusual words, or in which many short syllables come together, and to read, at certain stated times, much slower than the sense and just speaking would require. Almost all persons who have not studied the art of speaking have the habit of uttering their words so rapidly that this later exercise ought generally to be made use for a considerable time at first. For where there is an unformally rapid utterance, it is absolutely impossible that there should be strong emphasis, natural tones, or any just elocution. Aim at nothing higher till you can read distinctly and deliberately. Learn to speak slow. All other graces will follow in their proper places.
That's an excellent lesson. That's like that is like wisdom of the ages there. A little of rhetoric, a little grammar, all mixed into one. And this is something which, whew, I can't even think. Even in my day, it was occasionally the teacher would begin discussing a chapter and ask that one student stand and read a little of it. But you can see that once a class of students gets over maybe about 6 or 8, the teacher wouldn't have time to do this kind of training with children. And this is one of the big problems in education. So they never learn to pronounce. And I know very educated people who, when they see a word, they just, they cannot, they don't know how to break it apart and pronounce it. And I know people who, my father went to Columbia University, and occasionally he would say a word out loud, and I say, "No, Dad, when you pronounce that word, it's pronounced this way." So I've never heard it pronounced by anyone. I've only seen it written. So this is endemic in the United States, and it reflects an entire break with traditional education even in the United States. You're reading from a book that was published in the United States for U.S. school children. So what has happened in America in public schooling? All this money, and they don't even teach the most fundamentals. And we could add to that handwriting. Okay. It used to be, when I was even in elementary school, you were taught to handwrite. And the nuns who were supposed to teach me to handwrite gave up because I just couldn't pick it up. And I never learned to actually do cursive writing. If you look at me at cursive writing, it's completely illegible. And I'm a victim of that. So I'm big on good education. If a child doesn't learn it, give him some extra time, give him some extra lessons until he learns it. But that's because they just expected us to write. They never taught us to write. Years later, experts would see me write and say, "Brother, you're writing with your hand on the page. Your hand should not be on the page. If you write with your hand on the page, the angle of your letters will change as you go from one left to right because your hand's still in one spot. Weren't you ever taught to keep your hand off the page?" I said, "I was never taught that." So these tiny little errors right at the beginning, if they're not eliminated, if the child doesn't overcome them, it doesn't have a teacher to help them overcome them, it can affect their entire lives. And here we have one fundamental difference between Christian civilization and Masonic civilization. Masonic just wants to crank everyone out through the machine, and only there to make money for people. So whether you can really speak right or write well, that's not important, because we don't want you to speak and we don't want you to write. We want you to listen and shut up. Whereas Christian civilization recognizes every person could be the next great artist, writer, thinker, and therefore it's important to respect the dignity of every person and give them a good education.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see what they got in the writing textbook. Okay. So just it's just constant amazing stuff. And then it teaches you about descriptive pieces on how to describe things, and just things we were never ever taught.
You want to cite maybe a paragraph from the book so people can hear the kind of wisdom that was in these textbooks?
Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay. See, chapters 30, greatness. Say why was man so eminently raised amid the vast creation? Why ordained through life and death dart his piercing eye, with thoughts beyond the limit of his frame, but that the omnipotent might send him forth, in sight of mortal and immortal powers, as on boundless theatre to run the great career of justice, to exalt his generous aim to all giver, all divine deeds, to chase each partial purpose from his breast, and through the midst of passions and of sense, and through the tossing tide of chance and pain, to hold his course unfaltering, while the voice of truth and virtue, up the steep ascent of nature, calls him to his high reward. The applauding smile of heaven elsewhere burns in immortal bosoms this unquenched hope, that breathes from day to day sublimer things in mocks possessions. Wherefore darts the mind with such resist, resistless ardor to embrace majestic forms, impatient to be free, spurning the gross control of willful might, proud of the strong contention of her toils, proud to be daring, who but rather turns to heaven's broad fire his unconstrained view, than to the glimmering of waxen flame, who that from the alpine heights his laboring eye shoots round the wild horizon, to survey Nilus or Ganges rolling his bright wave, through mountains, plains, through empires black with shade, and continents of sand will turn his gaze.
Do they cite the author that's taken from?
Let's see here. No.
It sounds like one of the great English writers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Let's see if it shows it. No,
Electronic books aren't like good handheld ones, so you can find something.
yeah, but to now, yeah, it's a little blurry on the pages, but you also have to know that when you're reading these textbooks, the spelling is not the same.
Yeah, you did pretty well, yeah, because the spelling is more unified in modern times. That was always the hard thing about pronouncing Shakespeare and reading them out loud. And I remember that in Shakespeare class in high school, we had a hard time understanding it. And then our teacher said, about in the second or third week into the Shakespeare class, she said, I want you to read it out loud. And when it read it out loud, then everyone can understand what was being said. Once she corrected the pronunciations and stuff. But these are the basics. And notice how the beauty of that text taught poetry, it taught diction, it taught vocabulary. It also taught philosophy and a basic Christian piety, all in one text.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why Christian education produced great thinkers even by the time they were 18, because they were actually being taught. I remember I hated eighth grade, because from 5th to 8th grade, you were taught the same things every year. It was like, I was saying to myself, to Dad, I was saying, why do they expect us to not have any thoughts going on between 5th and 8th grade? Why every year do we taught the same thing? The only difference in mathematics between 5th and 8th grade was like, in 5th grade, we taught how to multiply up to numbers with 3 digits. And in 6th grade, it was 4 digits. And in 7th grade, it was like 8. I was like, do they actually think that's how the human mind develops, you know? It drove me crazy. It was a complete waste of time. I got so disgusted with school in middle school for that reason. But that's Masonic education, just dumb down everyone so that they're easily controlled.
Mm-hmm.
If you have children read that passage that you just read, they'll never be controlled, because they're going to say, I've been made for heaven. I'm a human being. I must live for truth and virtue. I shouldn't just obey like a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an intimate relationship with the deformation of public education and the Masonic control of the state. There's a direct relationship there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And to restore this type of education, even, I guess, restore these textbooks, one thing many Catholics and Christians been thinking about, but they've never, started a party to do it, is to get rid of the Secretary of Education office.
Yeah, that the whole idea that there should be federal control of education is Masonic. Let the Christian civilization do what it's always done: get your hands off the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that these people are out to control children's minds, also the people promoting pedophiles, should be no surprise to anyone. The other thing is that wherever a child chooses to go to school, parents choose to send the child to school, the tax money should follow him. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because if the purpose of taxes is to promote the education of children, then wherever they get educated, that money should go. But if the purpose of taxes is to promote the state indoctrination of my children, then I have no duty to pay those taxes, because that's unconstitutional. Okay, there's supposed to be separation of church and state, and that means also separation from the lodge from the state. The state by the U.S. Constitution doesn't mean it's supposed to be controlled by the lodge, and therefore, if you want to teach my children some other values, then I'm not paying for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And if it's for the sake of children's education, then wherever I choose to send my children, that's where the money should go. And that should be the position of a Christian party. Any sane, even pro education party should be that. But now my mother said it was in the 70s, the Marxists took over the teachers unions in the US, and you can't even say squat, you'll be kicked out of the union and everything. So it's a complete devastation now what's going on in public schools and in America. It's just terrible.
Yeah. So, idea is to get rid of those teachers unions, get rid of the Secretary of Education, and restored. I get if we could find printers, use print these books,
Yeah,
restore
well,
these books.
yeah, well, they're old enough, so you can you can reprint them, because you shouldn't use electronic books in the classroom. So, and imagine that if in your town every church could run its own school for its own kids, and there would be no even need for public schools anymore, because people could go back to the classics, and each school could compete academically, and then you'd really have, can you imagine if every church in town had its own school, and then each year there was like scholastic competition, which students in which school knew their Latin better, or knew their English prose better, or knew their geography, and you would have a tremendous renaissance in education, and parents would get their children educated according to the values they choose. And though as Catholics, we don't agree with non-Catholic religions and how do they do things, nevertheless, we do admit the principle that the parents make the decision about these things. And I think the Catholic schools, if they were run right, would soon outpace all the others, because we don't say don't study backward in time, because we know if you go all the way back, it proves the Catholic religion. So
Yeah.
This is the kind of revival we need, and we're never going to have it voting Democrat, Republican. You're not going to make America great again voting Donald Trump. I'm sorry to say it. I mean, he doesn't even want to make America great again. He seems he wants to make Israel great again or something, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
He's certainly not making the cities great again. They're burning down, and he's just like watching it happen.
Yeah.
I don't think he's taken any position on education either.
He wants to restore. What did he say? He wants to restore the Masonic education, or it's the Masonic idea of that of the Masonic teaching of America. The normal Patrick Henry, all that stuff, but not the true actual history of America.
Oh, so he wants to restore the Masonic propaganda of history, their version of history. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That just promotes control.
Yeah.
You teach the real history, and then the whole system will actually get better, and it will break out of the Masonic control.
Yeah.
And
So
that's, if there's anything lacking in the textbooks that you've discovered, that's probably one of the characteristics too. They probably have a slightly Masonic or secularist bent to them, whereas real Catholic textbooks would quote authors from the entire, like church fathers and saints and stuff like that. So
yeah. So I'm not sure when the 1900 part kicks in these textbooks, but probably around there. That's when it starts shifting.
it was like in the 20s, it started shifting a lot from the basics. It used to be reading, because the medieval system, which is Catholic, if there's any history of education, it's Catholic. You have to go back to the trivium and quadrivium. So reading, writing, arithmetic, that was the basic fundamental ones. And then after you mastered those, then you went on to study the quadrivium, which was logic, geometry. I forget what the other two are off the top of my head, because I was never taught them. But for example, in the United States, they do not teach in any public school. They never teach you logic. Now, why is that? Logic is one of the most fundamental disciplines. Why do they not teach you logic? Because then you would know you're being hoodwinked. Then you would know you're being lied to. You would know how to think. They can't do that. And even at college, where they do teach logic, they don't teach you Aristotelian logic. They teach you positivist logic, which just helps you do algebra, really.
And bringing me up to a point when I hit when I was a sophomore to senior year of high school, they decided, well, since we're forcing them to read and that they're not reading, let's just let them read on their own and let them choose their books. So I was reading Shakespeare because Shakespeare. And I was also reading military history books, World War II, Korean War. And she's like, you've read pretty much all these books. Want anything new? If I knew the books I wanted to read then of Anthony Sutton, I would have seen if she would have got him for me because, well, she's a relative. The librarian was a relative of mine. I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
you just sneak these under the radar.
Yeah. And really, Sutton's books are excellent books to be read for high school students, because what's the purpose of high school is to prepare the citizen for public life, to stand on his own 2 feet, to go out into the world on his own. And if you don't know what's really going on, you're going to be hoodwinked, exploited, and manipulated. And once you read Sutton's books, then that's not going to happen. Then you're going to see what's really going on, and you'll know what companies to work for and what companies not to work for, and who to listen to and who not to listen to. And they don't want that, because they want complete control of even of the workforce. So
Yeah.
this is why a lot of parents have chosen homeschooling. I think there's now like 1.8 or 2.2 million children in the United States are being homeschooled. It's huge, and it's growing every year. And this is a great solution to the problem. But if you really want to solve the problem, you have to vote Christian Party for America. You have to organize a Christian Party American in your county, in your town, and you have to take back the government of your town, county, and state for the Christian people of America. Otherwise, you're just going to be more and more manipulated. And then this pandemic is the absolute flowering of manipulation. It's complete manipulation.
Yeah. And sad to say, we broke the news on it in our Christendom or Skull and Bones College show about the homeschool programs. Seton Hall programs started by the wife of the founder of Christendom College, and he was CIA. And so,
Yeah. I've personally, I don't have any familiarity with the Seton homeschool. I don't know if you've seen any of their stuff, but that, as our Lord says, you're not going to pick good fruit from a bad bush. Just doesn't happen. You don't pick figs from thorns. So that was a really, I think, it would appear to be an attempt to take control of the entire education system in the United States, not only homeschooling, but also college. And our program on Christendom College, I think, was in a certain way very timely, because we showed how it was founded by people all associated with the Skull and Bones Lodge, Masonic. We're not saying that people were Masons, but they were all associated with Freemasons. And now we have this Christian Identity Conference run by one graduate of the school, Michael Matt. And we have Vigano giving a talk at this conference, which is completely Masonic, designed to get Catholics to think that Catholic identity now is thinking of the church in Masonic categories. And I don't see why Michael Matt would tolerate that, since his paper is constantly pushing traditional Catholicism, not Freemasonry. But maybe because he went to Christendom College, he finds that acceptable.
Yeah. So we have one zealous member in South Carolina, and that's pretty much it.
Well, at the present, give people the time. And we encourage you to join the Christian Party of America. Go to christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com and let AJ know you're interested in the party. We're slowly building up membership. Americans are just all distracted by the election. Once the election's over, then maybe people will be able to start thinking about it, because either Biden will win and you realize America is under direct threat, and then you're going to wake up and realize the Republicans never did anything to defend you, or Trump will win and then he'll show his true colors. And I don't think it's going to be what you're expecting. And then I think you'll realize voting Christian Party of America, I mean, at least supporting a Christian party, is what you should have been doing all along. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So those doing homeschool, these books are on the education reform platform page on the Christian Party for America website. Use them. They're there. And if you just type in Anthony C. Sutton, his Wikipedia page should come up, and hopefully they haven't removed his books, because all of them are still PDF and should be still all linked on his Wikipedia page, so you can get them for free and use them. and this is and another great book. We'll be touching on it on Friday. The Antichrist by Father Vincent P. McKelly, and on the reasons why education is the way it is today for Catholics and the troubles with it. Well, he's going to get into that and tell you how it all started.
He gives an excellent discourse in that book about that, and I'm honored to have actually met Father Michelli when I was in university, and he came to a town near my college, and actually went to a private conference with him, and with about 6 people, and one of the great honors I've had as a young man. It was actually start me realizing there's something wrong in the church, and he put me on the right track. He says, you got to learn your Latin, and you have to read the fathers of the church in the Latin, because what they're actually saying is not what you're being told they're saying. That's how dishonest so many academics are. They've completely apostatized. And what he was saying to me, I felt was so radical at the time, but what he was saying was absolute truth. He lived a few years later and died of cancer, poor man. But what he was saying was absolute truth. He was one of the last true Jesuits and true Catholic academics.
Yeah. So we've blown the lid off even more on false Catholic education on Friday. So yeah, but today wanted to point you to these textbooks, tell you about them, read from them, and show how they are far superior to what we've learned in public school since early 90s to the 2007 for me and whenever for you. It's just mind-blowing, different, and beautiful, these textbooks.
The contents of these textbooks remind me of a saying of St. Thomas. St. Thomas says, it might not appear that it's very important that at the start of your journey, you head out in the exact right direction. But if there's just a small deviation in your journey from the beginning, you're not going to end up where you're supposed to be heading. And this we see in education. If children are given the best textbooks and the best explanations and the clearest ideas, and they're formed in that, then they're going to stay on the right path their whole life. So many parents tell me, all my children lost the faith. I send them to a Catholic college. I send them to Catholic high school. I send them to Catholic elementary, and they've all lost their faith. How can it be? I said, well, maybe you send them to the wrong schools. My mother, she didn't send any of her kids to, my parents never sent any of their kids to Catholic schools for a reason. And I said, Ma, why is that? She goes, well, Fulton Sheen said, don't send your kids to Catholic schools, they'll lose the faith because the schools have been taken over. And my mother was a big Fulton Sheen fan, and she was an educator, and she was right. That's what saved myself and my brothers. But we also encouraged to buy our own books, read on our own, and it's not like our parents bought us books or made us read. If we said, Ma, I'd like to get a book on something, she'd go, okay. So we were encouraged to do it. You know, the whole idea of like, can I have a shelf in my bedroom? Yeah, of course you can. And our dad built shelves for us because he knew if he's going to build a shelf for us, we're going to put books on it. It wasn't like, you have too many books in your room, what are you doing? It wasn't that kind of attitude at all. And so, well, my brothers now have a private library with like 3,000 or 4,000 books in it because they're constantly buying books. Every year they must buy, I don't know, dozens of books. So it sets a proper environment when you encourage children to do the right things in good education when they're young, and it will save them so much suffering and it will save their children so much suffering because you're giving them the answers to all the big problems in life so that they can avoid them. And when not, they just go deluded, and you see the terrible things now with drug addiction among youth. It's just absolutely horrible. There's some towns in the United States where 60% of all the youth are drug addicts, and we're talking about even the countryside, because in school they're not taught the human beings. They're not taught that there's anything more. And well, what if you're not anything more than a dog? What else is there left for you? You know.
Yeah. And when at school, our meeting area lobby where all the lockers were was the old gym where the high school played basketball on Friday nights, and right across the road, the ditch was the Catholic parish, and I always wanted just to go over there during lunchtime because most of the time I just got tired of the same old crappy food. But no, 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 you had to stay in the old gym. You had to stay here. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
so if your school is nearby a parish and your students want to go over there during their lunchtime just to pray, let them. They will be allowed to do it.
Yeah, only a Christian party would allow that. And so people have to realize how much they're hurting themselves voting Democrat and Republican. You are voting away your your access to Western civilization. You're voting away all the real opportunity for yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. You are betraying yourself in every so many ways. And this is why the Masons are obsessed with getting you to vote for either Democrat, Republican. They're obsessed with it because they know that's their system of control. If you were to break from that, they would lose power and they would be defeated. And that's why it's constant pounding from every source of information. Vote Democrat, vote Republican. You got to vote this party or that party will win. And they hitting you 24/7. And Catholics who are involved in that system of control are evil. They're evil, and they will go to hell because they are evil. What they're doing is serving the Masonic order. They're not serving Jesus Christ. They're serving the Masonic order. They're serving Satan. Whereas a true Catholic is going to say, wait a moment, these parties aren't Catholic. We shouldn't be pushing anyone to vote for them. We should create a Christian party and push the politics of Christ. That's our duty as disciples of Christ.
Yeah. So, anything else?
I encourage everyone, once again, join the Christian Party for America.wordpress.com. Leave a message there, contact AJ, I think it's the contact form, and start building up an organization. Wake up, smell the coffee, realize where America isn't going to be America with these two parties. One's burning the country down, and the other thinks they can just tweet about it. And you are an idiot if you put any more hope and trust in these people. I mean, anyone my age already sees how the country's been totally ruined. Young people perhaps don't know because they haven't taught you anything about history to know what's going on. But look at these textbooks. These textbooks, the kind you would find in a Catholic school today, maybe. But you wouldn't find them in a Catholic school even today. That's how denigrated education is even in Catholic institutions. So what's the cause of that? is voting Democrat or Republican. That's the cause of that. And you got to snap out of it, because we only have one party in the United States, and that's the Masonic Lodge. We need a party of Jesus Christ, because you're going to fight. You first have to organize an army. You can't say, let's just say our rosaries and God will save us. That's blasphemy. No Catholic saint or warrior ever said that. He would say, let's first say our rosary and then let's draw our swords. And let's get everyone in the neighborhood organized together and defend our town against brigands or bandits or Vikings or Moors or whatever it was. It wasn't like, well, we have to wait for the mayor to do something. No, it's not that. So if you don't have that vitality anymore, you're already a slave. And turn off your Twitter account, turn off your email, turn off your Facebook page, because you're a dog and you decided to live like a dog. So buy yourself some dog food in the dog aisle and live like a dog that just obeys the Masonic masters and go whenever they tell you to do something. But if that's not what you are, then form a Christian party and fight back. You have to put it in practice, your faith. If you don't put your Christian faith in practice, you don't have Christian faith.
So to send a message to join up, just go to the join up page. There's a little thing saying, asking you for a little resume, whatever fits in the contact form, and be in touch. We try to have meetings Monday and Friday, but it's slowed down to hardly any. But so hopefully you'll join us and share the website, use the textbooks, and promote the party. It's time to retake America and restore.
If you love Jesus Christ, the decision is easy. You got to snap out of the control, and so turn off television, because that's just a system control, and turn off all these controlled websites that are telling you to obey the Masonic system. Don't listen to them. It's a complete waste of time to listen to these people. And it's sad to say that the Masonic Lodge has taken over the church in the United States. And not only the churches where they say that Mass in English, but also where they say the Mass in Latin, they're all completely controlled, because they tell you the same thing. Vote for the Masonic party or don't be politically active. That's what they tell you to do, and that's the Masonic doctrine. And you have to wake up and realize you've been hoodwinked.
So once again, go to christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com, and the 4 is FOR. So christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com, and the link will be in the description in the YouTube and Mixcloud and BitChute pages. And please share it. Please email it around. It needs to be shared, and people need to act. I see we're up to about 900 visits, which is good, but no 900 emails yet.
Little by little, okay. But this is the hope of America, that you put Christ into politics. And you can't put Christ into politics unless you have a Christian party. The Masons will never allow it. They'll never tolerate it. And they're going to become more and more anti-Christian. And why keep burning incense at their altars and wasting your time with them? I don't know what people are. I know many good Catholics in America, and they're right on all the issues, but they're addicted to voting for one of the other parties. They can't snap out of it. There's some kind of mind control on them or something. But I think it's because they haven't sat down and said, I'm going to serve Jesus Christ. They've only sat down and said, well, I'm going to try to do something good or something better, or try to prevent the country from falling to pieces on my own, with my own wisdom and with my own prudence. Maybe they'll say a rosary, but they're not actually going to say, let me take the doctrines of Jesus Christ and form a party and promote that, which is what that's the only way to serve Jesus Christ in a country where you have the right to vote. If you're not doing that, you're not serving Jesus Christ. And when we could emphasize it 100 times, but that's the only truth. That's political truth.
Yeah. Now, I want to hit this really quick because people are like, how are you going to make America 100% Christian and 100% pro-life? You know, you got to work with the houses, both houses of Congress and everything. I told them, it's simple. We're going to play the Democratic game. We want full, total control. We want to win the local elections, the state elections, the federal elections. Then we can do the constitutional amendments and convention to rewrite the Constitution and make it what the Catholic sounding Presbyterians wanted to do in the 1870s.
Mm-hmm. I in that kind of objection that you heard said, I heard similar people say, but you know, that's going to take so long. That would, well, you know, let's look at the example of the one Catholic nation in Europe. No, not the only one, but the one who's given the greatest example. They had a Catholic nation. They controlled their entire peninsula. They were invaded by Visigoths, who were Arians, and their priests and their clergy concentrated on preaching the faith to their new conquerors, and they converted them to the Catholic faith. Then they were invaded by Moors, and they lost control of their entire peninsula except a tiny, tiny little mountain region with a shrine to Our Lady in it, Our Lady of Covadonga. I've been there when I was a young man in the high mountains of Spain. And for 700 years, they did not stop fighting. And they took back their entire peninsula and liberated their land. And those are the Catholics of Iberia, Portugal, and Spain. And God rewarded them with the discovery of the New World, and their culture went to 2/3 of the New World and brought the faith to hundreds of millions of people. So, you can't hear me?
No, I'm pointing to the Spanish.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So if you look at that mass scene behind AJ's shoulder is the first mass on the soil of what's now called the United States, said by Spanish Catholic priests as part of the Spanish colonial empire at St. Augustine, Florida. So they're the ones who brought the faith because they fought. They're not like, well, it will take 700 years, so I want to vote the Masonic system this year, and so I can remain a prisoner and slave. And you will have everyone from LifeSite to Remnant to 1 Peter 5 to EWTN. You name them all. They'll all say the same thing. Because they are slaves. They are not free people, and they don't want you to be free. They want you to remain in slavery. That's why I say this is false Catholic apostolate. And they're all laymen, okay? If Order Militaris anything is different is because AJ descendants go back to the great saints and rulers of Europe, and I'm not a layman, I'm a Franciscan brother. So we're giving you a point of view that, yes, is intimately personal with both of us, but is 100% Catholic, historically correct. And that's true Catholicism. And this is the way out. This is the solution for America, Christian Party for America. And you got to become active in it. You have to unplug. You have to literally unplug your psyche from your television. All of us nearly have grown up with a television. Mm-hmm. And the problem with the television is the television just gives you information. That's all it does. It gives you information. It gives you so much information that it suppresses thought, and it suppresses initiative, and it suppresses even reaction. If you try to start a conversation in a room with the television, people say, "Be quiet, the television's on." why should I be quiet? I'm a human being. I'm more important than a television. And what I have to say is more important than a television.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the television off. But the effect, psychological effect television is it emasculates you. So all you can do is sit on your couch and put potato chips in your mouth. That's all you can do. There's nothing else you're allowed to do when watching television. But that's not Christian civilization. Christian civilization didn't have radio, it didn't have television, it didn't have the internet. Okay. When you had achieved something, you got on your horse, you got your sword out, and you went and you fought brigands, or you did something in the real world. You achieved something great in the real world. You didn't sit around and watch, Starsky and Hutch catch the thief. You went out and caught thieves. Okay. And in the Middle Ages, if you went to the local sheriff and say, I want to help catch thieves, he'd go, come on in. Now it's like, don't be a vigilante. That is just prohibited. So the Masonic culture has totally demasculated us, that we don't take any initiatives, and you're not allowed to take initiative. And that they want that because they want you to be content and able to do only one thing, and that is obey them. And so there needs to be a great culture revolution. We have to return to Christian civilization, and you're not going to get it if your psyche's plugged into the television. So I highly recommend turning the television off and never watching any more broadcast television ever again. The only thing that's about tolerable, if you can find videos in the internet that's telling you to think, that's the only thing that's tolerable anymore, because everything else is to control you and not to get you to think and act on your own. And you're going to, all my benefactors, I have two kinds of benefactors, those that watch television and those that don't watch television. I can tell you, the ones that don't watch television are happier, more hopeful, more energetic, more active in their faith, more personable, easy to get along with. The ones in watching television are terrorized. That was even before COVID-19. They were worried, they were uncertain, they were insecure, and they were incapable of doing anything or making any decision to even free themselves. So the television had control over them, and you got to just give it up. You just got to give up television, go cold turkey on it, on commercialized television, and because you're not going to get anything out of it other than being told what to do by godless people. And well, now most of all, it's just pornography 24/7, any time of the day. So that's one of the fundamental things.
So, yep. So one more time, go to christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com. Now, for is FOR. So christianpartyforamerica.wordpress.com. The links will be in the descriptions of the two video pages and the audio page for Mixcloud. And to join up is real easy. Go to the join up page. It asks for a little short resume to say who you are, what have you done with the two different parties out there, and all that. And we'll receive the email and get you on your way.
Okay, well, thank you, AJ, for having me on this program for the Christian Party America weekly program on Tuesdays. And we encourage others to watch our previous programs. AJ, you've posted them all on the party page, so you can listen to them. And our programs are chiefly to get you to start thinking as a Catholic on political topics, okay? Because that's the big hurdle. Once you get over that, then you're going to start saying it makes sense. Because in the United States, we're taught to not be Catholic in public. And no, you after singing the hymn to Christ the King in church, you should go out of the church and work to make Christ the King, and not just pretend you are, because it's not going to happen by voting Donald Trump, okay? And if you think it is, you've been brainwashed, because Donald Trump is not Jesus Christ, and he's not in favor of Christ the King.
So please like, share in all these videos. Please keep subscribing, and please keep listening to the audio on Mixcloud. And as brother said yesterday, to listen to the programs on Mixcloud is a lot easier on the data usage. and you can take it with you. And so do that. I want to thank the listeners yesterday for, I guess, taking it with them, because we have like 22 listens on the End Times program and 6 listens for terrorism Poland.
It's not such pleasant news, yeah, but it's the Mixcloud stuff is great on a cell phone. It really works really well. So
this is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.